Welcome back to another amazing episode of Krusty Car News. We have 5 amazing stories. The first story is Nissan is absolutely going out of business. They've never seen this level of catastrophe ever. The second story is car prices about to skyrocket, with some affordable vehicles are now going to be gone for 2025. And the third story, I'm going to share with you the cheapest, most affordable Mercedes-Benz on the market today, how much it's going to cost you up front, monthly payments, and why in fact so many people are deciding, nah. The fourth story is the entire car market reset is here. With all of the turmoil, car dealers shutting down, manufacturers closing their doors, and the takeovers are happening in real time, the market has never seen this level of catastrophe. And the fifth story, breaking news, Stellantis, the Jeep, Ram, Dodge, Chrysler products are all going down with major changes in the manufacturer. The CEO is gone. We're definitely in for a long, bumpy ride, and the dealers are in a world of hurt and about to close their doors. So sit back, grab that snack, hold on for a bumpy ride, and let's get into it now.
Life's too short to drive boring cars.
The first story is breaking news. Nissan is about to go out of business. Top executives are saying they may only have 12 to 14 months left unless they can rally up a new core investor to help dig them out of the financial pit that they are in currently today.
They're looking at 9,000 workers getting laid off globally. The CEO is even looking at taking a pay cut, and profits are forecasted to be down 70% in this year. And with an aging lineup, they're looking at trimming down 25 to 20 models if they even last a year. Many problems have plagued Nissan, and competition is one of them. On top of that, electric vehicles are this up-and-coming marketplace, but Nissan has none of that. Hybrid vehicles? Nissan has none of that. And that's why they're not being competitive with the likes of Toyota and Honda. Rather, they bring out vehicles like the Pathfinder, like these vehicles, the Rogue, which is rocking the CVT transmission. And we all know the quality control and the continuously variable transmission have led to allegedly reputational issues. Things are so bad, in fact, the brand is literally scaling back 25 down to 20 models and shrinking every single month. And while Nissan is coming out with their latest Armada, the Titan is going bye-bye, and this currently is the only pickup truck that you can really get your hands on. We're talking about the Nissan Frontier, but even this, with the naturally aspirated V6, it's a great offering. However, it might be just a little bit too little, too late.
And can you actually believe it? Nissan actually had products that were competitive with Toyota and Honda. They were actually one of the top players, and it's absolutely devastating to see how they flipped the table and they've gone from one of the tops to one of the bottoms in the current industry.
Allegedly, the first 6 months of 2024 meant they lost 99% of their profits, largely because they can't sell these vehicles, and they've thrown all of their money at incentives to get these vehicles out the door, to get them into the customer's hands. And unfortunately, even though a lot of customers don't want them, it's these heavy incentives that have cost Nissan the bottom line. And Nissan's having to offer and dig down into their profits just to give away some of these vehicles. Clearly, not making money on their lending is yet another challenge that Nissan has had. They're not making money on the financial side, nor are they making money on the sales of their vehicles. And the annual profit forecast has dropped by 70% from $3.25 billion down to $975 million, means there's almost no money left at the end of the year. And that's the forecast. Clearly, every manufacturing is struggling. And it's not just Nissan. We've seen Volkswagen closing plants, and as well as Stellantis, they just kicked out their CEO. And a lot of manufacturers have been feeling the struggles, not just Nissan. Ford, we know they're leading the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, the leading recall king, and that is causing them a whole host of struggles. A lot of vehicles as well, for example, like the Bronco Sports, and naturally even the Broncos itself, the full-size Broncos, are now sitting on lots where they were commanding thousands, tens, $15,000 over sticker price. Now there's actually an overabundance and nobody's buying them. And even Renault, one of the primary anchor investors, pulled back and retracted 46 down to 36% investment overall in the organization of Nissan. And clearly their signs and the writing is on the wall. But that's the trick. Nissan's screaming for another anchor investment, maybe an investment or a banking firm. But word has it, this manufacturer, because they're possibly partnering up with Mitsubishi as well as Nissan on the electrification, Honda is the tried and true manufacturer that may in fact absolutely end up absorbing Nissan.
We really hope for Nissan, keep our fingers crossed. We used to love what they are. Now, unfortunately, they're just a skeleton of what they were in their heyday. Hopefully they can turn it around. Hopefully they can get another investor, and we'd love to see some great new exciting products. Just get rid of that CVT, would ya? The second story is how these car prices are literally about to skyrocket. A lot of those vehicles are vehicles that once we could afford. See, with this transformation into the electric vehicle space and the over complexity of a lot of these vehicles, it pushes people now to invest in a lot of these high price point vehicles. Now, unfortunately, the average transaction price has crept up. We're almost at $50,000 now. Would you believe it? $48,397 based on Edmunds information. But a big part of the reason it's not even higher is because 7.3% of those transaction prices are based on heavy incentives. The fact that many of these new vehicles that are going away in 2025 are some of those that are in the below 48,000 range, and they're rising the average. So what we're going to see in the next year to 2 years is a combination of less people being able to even get into the new car and SUV and truck market. And those that are going to push the market up because they're paying for these more expensive vehicles. With many manufacturers tossing in 2025 some of their most cost-effective and affordable vehicles, it leaves the consumer buying only the more expensive models. Everything cheap is now being replaced with more expensive vehicles. This is an absolute devastating time. Exciting for tech geeks, not so good for people on a limited budget. And very few people are able to afford this rising average inflationary cost of new car prices. The Volvo S60, bye-bye. Just not a popular vehicle. Reliability issues. That one's not so much a cost of living factor. That's more of a reliability and reputational challenge. Subaru is also toasting the Legacy. That one, it does come in typically below that average. So by eliminating vehicles like that, you're eliminating the option and getting lower price point vehicles. And unfortunately, that likely will be replaced with more expensive variants. Nissan, we know Nissan is struggling for sales. The GTR is the big one. That's one that is going bye-bye this year in 2025. It doesn't look to be coming back anytime soon. The Mini Clubman in 2025 looks to be going away as well. When we talk about price point cars, and I've said this before, some of the things that are bringing these prices down or holding them, anchoring them down a little bit are the lower price point vehicles. And we can't even find a vehicle under $20,000 anymore. Sadly, this was the only one. And in 2025, the Mitsubishi Mirage is going away. And this is really painful because there are people out there that just need the bare minimum, just need the basics, just need a minimal form of transportation. And the Mitsubishi Mirage, you know, relatively economical, relatively reliable, basic means is going away in 2025. That's sad. Maserati and the Ghibli also going away in 2025. That's a higher price point vehicle. Should have very little impact. The sales were very minimal. As is the Jaguar F-Type. We know I actually had an F-Type. I sold it. I loved it. It's amazing. I don't know why it never caught on, but it didn't. And while there's people out there who love them and swear by them like myself, it just wasn't enough. The sales weren't there. We've seen decline in the last 4 to 5 years. Jaguar are falling off a cliff. Q50 by Infiniti, bye-bye. A lot of Nissan products that aren't selling well. And Infiniti is the spin-off of Nissan, another vehicle. Not the worst. And actually, quite honestly, probably one of the more reliable Nissan products, as it actually has a torque converter auto. It has some fun looks, has a great engine and a couple of great engine choices, 300, 400 horsepower. Unfortunately, didn't really catch on, and Nissan's, trimming the fat, and that's one of them. Ford as well is getting rid of the Edge. We know the Edge was a popular vehicle, and actually, some would argue that it was one of their more popular and more reliable vehicles recently. And would you believe this? The Escape, one of their most popular vehicles, but I think what they're trying to do, in my personal opinion, is trying to stop the bleeding. The Escape's been around for a long time. Started out as a little boxy. It came out with a collaboration with Mazda many moons ago when they had that square boxy, body on frame design. And they transitioned in 2013 to this more of a unibody minivan look, kind of a very cab forward look design. And then they switched it up here a couple short years ago. But the reliability's been very mixed, with this EcoBoost engines have been very problematic. The 1.5s have been a big problem. And now they've got this leaky injector issue with the 1.5s. Lots of bad reputational issues. And it looks to be like the Escape is going away. But also, the sad part is the Escapes are some of those vehicles that are below that $48,000 threshold, the average transaction price. So by eliminating some of these vehicles that are high sellers in big numbers, you're essentially going to see that average transaction price edge up. And sadly, pardon the pun, edge up. But the Edge and the Escape, both vehicles below that number, are going to, again, additionally slowly creep up that average transaction price. And I've told you this, probably by next spring, you're going to see over $50,000 as an average. The Chevy Malibu, unfortunately, I also talked about this, how what they're doing now is they're replacing vehicles like the Malibu. You know, Ford did it with the Fusion. Malibu is now, by this fall, is going away. It's pretty much done. It's gone. And it's unfortunate because the Malibu was not, some people love it, some people didn't. It certainly sold a lot to fleets, and some people just bought them anyway because they were low cost, easy to own and operate. But the sad reality is that was it for their sedans. Chevy got pretty much rid of all of their sedans. And what they replaced it with was a similar platform, but an SUV look. And now they're charging an extra $8,000, $10,000 on the base sticker. So it's clear that it doesn't cost more to build the SUVs, but they're charging more as the popularity of SUVs is climbing, pushing up the average transaction price and pushing the affordability out of our hands. Camaro, another one, also going away for 2025. It's unfortunate. Anybody who's driven a ZL1 1LE like I have, absolutely spectacular performance. It's sad to see it go. It's basically a Corvette in practicality or a jumpsuit. So it's a great vehicle. Too bad. Bye-bye. Cadillac, the XT4 SUV. We know that's being swapped out for an electric vehicle. We also know it was one of the most effective, most cost-effective vehicles, one of the most affordable price point Cadillacs in the fleet. And now that going away, they're replacing it now with an electric model that's going to be rebadged and relabeled something different. We talked about that as well previously, but sadly, the XT4, one of their most affordable vehicles, subpar to that $48,000 price point, is going away. Again, likely to see that average transaction price rise. And now we have the Audi A4 sedan. The A4, not a great vehicle, in my personal opinion. I don't think a lot are going to miss it. There are people that do swear by them, but you know, the EA888 engine, that turbo 2-liter, there's been nothing but problems with that vehicle since the second coming. 10 years, 15 years ago, you know, the A4s have always been a bit problematic. I've always said this too, go with the, you know, the S5, you know, S4s and the RS4s, and go with the hotter engines. Usually Audi puts a little more blood, sweat, and tears in there. But the A4 sedan is gone as well on 25. But the average transaction price have crept up 50% in the last 10 years. It's obvious that it continues to rise. And we're going to see a much steeper rise, in my own personal opinion. Sure, while its incentives, 7.3% in the last run here, has been enough to sort of bolster or hold back, anchor back those prices a little bit. There's only so much these manufacturers can do. We also see a lot of these vendors have nowhere to go but charge more and more and more. As this transformation to electric vehicles, the research, the development, the battery costs, and all of this technology just puts more money into these vehicles. And that translation means more cost for you, the consumer. So if you've been thinking about getting some of those outgoing vehicles, the vehicles that are gone for 2025, and you think, you know what, my days are numbered, this may in fact be the time to get the outgoing 2024. And remember, the end of the year, as we round out December, are the best times to get your deals as dealers try to wrap up, make their quotas, and try to certainly do their best to move some of the outgoing obsolete inventory. This may in fact be your opportunity to get something on this list. The third story I'm going to share now is the cheapest, most cost-effective Mercedes-Benz you can buy actually today. Yes, the new Mercedes GLA is the cheapest, most affordable Mercedes. Can you afford it? I don't know. I'm going to break this down. I'm going to share the price. I'm also going to calculate the monthly payment and discuss some of the overall costs, whether in fact people are able to afford these and whether in fact they even want to afford these. Do these modern day Mercedes have what it takes?
This here is a Mercedes-Benz GLA. Yes, we'll talk about that very quickly, but it's very specifically, I want to talk about the cost of living crisis, because what people are dealing with. I mean, I'm browsing here on the Auto Trader, and I'm looking at the prices, and the cheapest version of this here in Canada is going for around 60. They say it starts around $53,000, $54,000, but this vehicle here is a lot more than just $50,000. To get it typically spec'd, you're in that 60 plus. And you know, definitely browsing the classifieds here, it's pretty clear to me that all the local vendors are asking similar money, high 50s, low 60s. I've seen some even more money than that. But I want to talk about the average transaction costs, what we're dealing with. And I'll show you this vehicle, what you're actually getting for the cheapest Mercedes. And then you ask yourself, is it really worth it? Is it really worth going into that level of hawk for that vehicle at that level of quality, detail, technology? These new vehicles are so full of technology. And I want to do a quick walk around. I'll show you what this vehicle looks like, some of the things you're getting on the outside of this vehicle. and then some of the things, the technology on the inside. I also want to talk about the price, break this down for you, and I want to share how much that's going to cost you a month if you're buying this vehicle per month. Remember, the average transaction price right now is approximately almost $49,000. And sadly, people are even taking car loans out for as much as 84 months or 7 years. 5 years is kind of the average car loan term that I usually go by. Interest rates on a lot of these vehicles aren't highly incentivized right now for a lot of the German vehicles. Mercedes-Benz is one of these brands that is struggling. They're laying off employees every which way. They're talking about closing plants because a lot of these electrified vehicles that they're trying to create are not what the customer ordered. That's not what people are looking for. But let's do a quick walk around this vehicle, and I'll share with you some of the costs, the monthly cost of this vehicle, and what you're actually getting for that money. Because realistically, you do have to really question, you know, is it worth it? Is it worth that money? And so $60,000 or more for this vehicle is really what you're looking at. So here we have the base entry-level Mercedes-Benz GLA. This comes under the hood. We get ourselves a 2-liter turbo 4, run sideways because it's basically a front-wheel drive vehicle. If you get the 4MATIC, it does give you an optional additional drive at the back, but these come predominantly as a front-wheel drive. This one also has a 48-volt mild hybrid assist. So that's what a lot of manufacturers are doing these days, giving you a little hybrid assist, a little extra horsepower. You get an extra 13 ponies out of it on top of the base 221 horsepower. It does come with an 8-speed dual clutch gearbox, which is interesting. It's got the generator starter setup, so it's actually a lot smoother on a startup than you're getting with a lot of the old conventional start-stop systems. I mean, this is a Mercedes. Obviously, you're going to get the two-tone handles and the chrome like this, so that's kind of a nice touch. I mean, that gives you a little extra nice detail. You do get the auto fold-away mirrors, but a lot of vendors, a lot of manufacturers are all doing that these days. Let's take a look up top. They're giving a panoramic glass, but you're getting that on everything. Even Toyotas and Highlanders are coming with these types of finishing on there right now as well. You get a rear wiper on the back and LED tail lights, which is great. They do come with, a fairly garden variety look set of rims, nothing really spectacular. You'll notice the brakes are just a standard disc brake on the back. And then over on the front, you get disc brakes as well. But these ones here, you'll notice pretty conventional garden variety disc and 2-pot calipers, nothing too exciting there. So realistically, you have a vehicle here that gets about 32 miles to the gallon. The parts are going to be expensive. You get adaptive LEDs, you get adaptive suspension with some of these vehicles as upgrades, and it comes with a lot of extra tricks. Is this, driving the cheapest Mercedes-Benz even worth the trouble when you have brands like Toyota and Honda with arguably twice the reliability, but they give you all the same features? I mean, here's a key fob. I mean, we don't really see anything too spectacular here. You do have the ability to unlock and lock, of course, and naturally, you can press and hold, you can get that. That's a nice little feature. You can also close it that way, and you are able to close this with these buttons right there. Down here, they do give you the pass-through. Of course, you do get split seats, and the center drops down as well. Here, Mercedes gives you all these nice little widgets. You get this great little detail on here and some extras like that. But when you flip this up, you'll notice that there's no spare. They just get the tow hooks, which you'll probably need that on these vehicles. I noticed it looks like there's a couple hooks in there. Let's climb on in here, shall we? Let's take a look inside this vehicle. But before we get started in the front and look at some of the tech, I just want to show what you're getting in the back seats. You're obviously getting some nice, moderately decent quality leather. In the center there, you get a couple cup holders that flip down, and you get some nice aluminum details, some touch. You notice there's some accent lighting in there, and there's some heaters that you can adjust here as well in the back. But the real magic is actually at the front. And it does make you wonder if it's really worth it or not spending this kind of money on these vehicles. But let's just take a look. I mean, what you're kind of getting for this $60,000. You get a lot of plastic here. It does have this contrast stitching, which is kind of nice. Some interesting little unique patterns on here. Of course, you get some pre-adjustments on your seats. You get power seats, heated on both sides. Driver, passenger, lock door, lock, windows, everything like that. Now I noticed down here, this little red light, That there is the heated steering wheel. So you get a heated steering wheel in here, heated seats. It's great that way. You'll notice Mercedes now in their newer systems, they have some of these bigger screens. So this one goes actually the full width. It's actually quite nice. And you're getting, you know, their latest MBUX system, MBUX system. It's very responsive. You can go in and you can play, you can do all kinds of accent lighting and click in here and do all kinds of magic. Look at your vehicle, change manual shift. There's all kinds of fun technology. This side over here is really just gauges, but you've got haptic controls in here, which is not everybody's loving this, but these are another point of contention. All of these technology can and will fail, and when it does, it's going to be huge money. But let's just click on there. Actually, this should be, let's just click there. No, click. And then you're actually able to scroll through here, and you can do all kinds of different screen selections. So you can kind of give yourself a unique look. And then of course you click into that, click off-road. Now it gives you a whole new look. So, you know, clearly it's kind of a neat design. You're getting a lot of this accent lighting. You can change the color of these schemes to a whole multitude of different hues and tones and brightness. You get remote, you know, wireless charging and all kinds of plugins for your phone. Some nice detail here. Some soft touch details like this are always kind of fun. And what I do like are some of these modern day vehicles don't have a lot of these buttons and knobs anymore, but this Mercedes still sort of has some of these old conventional buttons, these rocker switches, which make them more accessible. And a lot of, you know, manufacturers now are using these selectors on the dash. Not really the best scenario. Now over here, again, more of the accent lighting. It's quite a fun piece. But, you know, looking up here, we do actually have this big sunroof for panoramic glass. This glass here opens up completely. The one back there is just light, but it doesn't actually open up. It doesn't have the big performance. It doesn't have all of the amenities. It's a very simple, slightly unrefined drive. But let's just take a look here. And I've got my phone, and I just want to kind of get into this because I think we have to ask ourselves if the value is there. We really do. And let me just scroll through my phone, and I'm gonna just go through this on the calculator. As you can see, I've got the calculator pulled up, and I'm gonna type in some numbers. We're gonna start with $60,000. We're gonna change this up to should we go 7%? How about 6.9%? That's not out of the ordinary. There's not a lot of huge incentives there. How about $10,000 down? I mean, that's not uncommon. And that takes you to 50 grand plus taxes. We'll select maybe California as the state, and $2,000, say title registration, hit the enter button on that. And taxes, 5% GST or state taxes. Look, that gives you $1,086, $1,086. I mean, does that represent a good deal? That's $1,100 a month. You throw on the additional costs for insurance, not just the price of these vehicles that people are spending on, which is significant, you know, $1,100, $1,200 a month. That's on 5 years, and that's with $10,000 down. That's like 20% down roughly. And you're still looking at spending probably $1,100 a month, plus the extra insurance. Now you're up to about $1,500 a month, and you see why we're in a state that we're in. Like, this is a great vehicle, it's beautiful, but get past all of the fun and all the technology. I mean, when this vehicle's out of warranty, if you have to replace this screen, I guarantee you're talking probably in that, you know, $3,000 to $4,000 at least for this. There's all kinds of modules, ABS modules, power seats, heated everything. All these modules are all talking to each other, and all it takes is one module to fail. They fail, it's going to end up costing you significant dollars. What represents the absolute lowest cost option in Mercedes, and it's costing you $1,200, $1,100 a month. And is it any wonder now, in a cost of living crisis, why people are now starting to look at this twice and saying, you know what, do I really need that? Maybe, you know, the job's unsure, the economy's not sure, taxes are up, interest rates are still kind of high. Do we need to buy this kind of vehicle right now? I just actually had a Toyota dealer reach out to me literally before I came to film this and said, hey, are you still interested in that 4Runner? And so the word has it is the newest ones are coming out. I'm hearing that they're up and around $100,000 now, at least in Canadian dollars, for a new 4Runner, the new redesign. And I told the guy straight up, I said, A, the prices are up, and B, the quality's down these days. From my perspective on Toyota, I said, no, I'm not interested. I'm good, thanks.
So I'd love to hear from you. If you, in fact, are interested in maybe buying one of these Mercedes, I personally think the quality isn't quite what they used to be. The cost has certainly gone up, and it definitely leaves a lot of people wondering, maybe I should just fix my old truck. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you'd like to get your own Exotic Car Play swag right here, if you're looking for that, right down there below in the bottom section, you can click right into my fourth wall page, get your own swag. Anyway, let's get into the next story. The fourth story, we're talking about the great car market reset. It's crashing, it's here, and it's now. The end of 2024, we've never seen this level of chaos. We never thought we'd see legacy manufacturers like Volkswagen having to shut down plants and lay off workers, Stellantis having to potentially part out some of their brands, Ford losing money on the sale of every single vehicle, Nissan closing doors, CFO hitting the road, and CEO taking pay cuts. Doesn't matter where you look, even Toyota is impacted by this entire industry shift. And what the market is promising now is instability, volatility, unsure. You don't know today if you're buying a car that will be here tomorrow. I mean, there's a lot of examples, and I'm going to share some of those examples of some of the biggest, ugliest car manufacturers today that may not be here next year or the year after, or they might be gobbled up or consumed by other brands. Things are tough, they're rough. Cost of living crisis is eating everybody. Less people are buying, and the only way a lot of these cars are selling is through aggressive incentives, as we're seeing average transaction prices of $48,000, and a lot of these vendors are eliminating all of their lower price point vehicles. Mitsubishi getting rid of the Mirage, that was the only vehicle under $20,000, with the flavor going to a lot of vendors now trying to pitch their electric vehicles, hybrid vehicles, all this added technology is pushing customers out the door. Customers can't afford it. Buyers don't have the money, with manufacturers shutting down, day supply and inventory rising, CEOs getting canned and workers getting fired, with plant closures across the entire industry. We've never seen this level of chaos. But what we're talking about are major legacy brands. I mean, start with Volkswagen. They're actually closing potentially 3 plants. There's all kinds of pushback. They're talking thousands of workers getting laid off. There's all kinds of disputes now because the unions in Europe are very strong, and there's all kinds of usually clauses in some of their agreements that hold everybody accountable. And usually the workers have a lot better protection. But if there's no buyers for their cars, that means no cars are going out the door. That means you don't need workers. Something has to break. We're seeing Volkswagen decided to go all in with EVs, and they got in a little too much, a little too soon. And now they're giving up on some of their ICE vehicles. The quality's not there on products like Jettas, and they've gone all in with electric vehicles, but nobody's buying them. Sales of EVs are down in Europe, and that's impacting Volkswagen in a big way. It's not good. But the VAG group we're seeing is also Porsche. You know, Porsche was going to go pure electric with their Macan, their Porsche Boxster, as well as a lot of their brands. They were going to shift entirely electric. Well, the latest news this week is they've elected not to. And so even Porsche, as part of the Volkswagen Audi group, has decided to provide an internal combustion version of the new restyled Macan and the Boxster. And they're going to create a new project line that does include internal combustion drivetrains. Again, just after a year earlier, they were talking about they were going all electric. I didn't even realize this, but their stock prices are taking a nosedive. Prices are not what the consumer ordered. I mean, I was in the dealership the other day and I saw prices for vehicles that are absolutely gone ballistic. What happened to a $50,000 C-Class or $45,000 C-Class? Now they're $80,000, $75,000 for a decked out C300. What has happened? Even some of their lower, the GLBs, are now up in that $72,000, $75,000 Canadian. I've never seen that. These vehicles were $40,000 2 or 3 years ago. Nobody wants the brand anymore. It's overpriced. It's a facade of what it used to be. The quality's not there. People aren't buying them. Nobody wants a V8 powered an AMG product that used to be V8 and now is a turbocharged 4-cylinder with a little hybrid. So they've missed the reading on the wall. They clearly missed the target audience. Nobody's buying Mercedes, and it shows. Ford's saying, well, we're selling more products, they're moving more metal, but a lot of it is, lower price point vehicles like the Maverick, because a lot of their F-150s weren't selling and the sales were declining. Well, also, they've seen some increased sales on their electric vehicles that all came in part due to heavy incentives. For example, the Mustang Mach-E or the Lightning have been grossly incentivized. This year, they're slashing prices off the base price of the Lightning, and we've seen major incentives on the Mustang Mach-E. So they're saying literally they're losing 6 figures on the manufacturing side of creating these electric vehicles. So the bleeding can only go on so long, and Ford is struggling. They also recognized when the CEO went and spent some time in a Chinese electric vehicle that they openly admitted they don't even know how they can compete with the Chinese market. The Chinese electric vehicles are better, more reliable, easier to use, they're easy, and yet they're much more cost effective. So that doesn't leave these legacy manufacturers in a good spot. None of them who are trying to compete with the Chinese market. Nissan hasn't been doing so well. That's right. We've just heard this week the CFO decided to resign, call it quits. When the chief financial officer walks away from a lucrative job, that's telling you something. That tells you everything you need to know. The CEO has taken major pay cuts and he looks to be going down with the proverbial ship. Nissan's not selling vehicles. And the ones that they are selling are, the lower price point vehicles. And it's not because Nissan vehicles aren't competitively priced. And I think that's where a lot of people get confused in this. We have some of the other competition like Stellantis we'll get to in a moment. But where Stellantis has really grossly overpriced a lot of their vehicles like Jeeps and some of their Dodge products we'll talk about here shortly, Nissan really hasn't done that. Their pricing isn't grossly exaggerated, but it's a combination of nothing fresh. They've sort of let the GTR die. That was one of their flagship vehicles that's sort of gone away. The Titan has lost interest. A lot of their vehicles have lacked reliability with that CVT transmission, just keeps dragging. It's like an anchor, keep dragging around, just keeps dragging along. And reliability has just been a nemesis for Nissan. It seems like Nissan really has nowhere to go because they're talking right from the top, and insiders are saying 12 to 14 months is all they're going to be able to hold on for dear life. Some brands are going to be dying completely, and there's a risk of many brands going away. Nissan could be one. There's other examples of brands that could just be gobbled up by other brands and just the name vaporizes, or it becomes a sub-brand. And again, Nissan seems to come to mind, as well as many of the Stellantis products. What's been going on over there? Very kindly, CEO Carlos Tavares was asked, or more or less implied and inferred, that he resigned, and he's resigned this week. And it's unfortunate for him, and I'm sure he got his big paycheck on the way out the door. But the door actually hit him really hard on the way out. So, take it for what it's worth. But there was a dispute with him and the senior board members about how to run the business. And they did double down. They went ultra hard. We saw with the chip shortage back in 2021, a lot of vendors realized that they can put a lot of, these chips where they had to sort of segregate and decide, okay, do I put it here, do I put it here? Because they couldn't put it in everything. So they started realizing, why would we put it in this cheap car with $1,000 price point? Why don't we put it in this high price point vehicle and we can make $6,000, $7,000 on that vehicle? So they were rationing these chips, putting them in the higher price point vehicles, and realizing we don't care about the entry-level buyers anyway. They're not here. And if they have the money, they'll step into the higher price point stuff. That's cool. We're good. But instead, they were catering more to people that were either well-heeled, had the money, or were willing and dumb enough to take on an 84-month loan to pay for some of these overpriced trash cars. Like some of these we've seen, Wagoneers and Rams and a lot of these products from Jeep, Ram, Dodge, have all been escalated because Stellantis thought they were going to hit while the iron was hot. People were paying market adjustment fees of $10,000 or $15,000, $20,000. And Stellantis saw that. But they doubled down and they went a little too hard. And when there was a shortage of inventory about all other brands, they went double, triple down over time to create more inventory to put them out to the dealer lots. But it backfired because by the time those vehicles actually hit the truck, hit the assembly line, hit the truck, wound up on the dealer lots, the market started to turn. You know, there was more inventory by other brands. Naturally, more chips started to evolve. People started having choice, and a lot of these vehicles became less palatable, and the prices were now stuck way too high. Now that left Stellantis with a lot of inventory. Dodge, you know, the Durango's it's an obsolete, ancient, aging product. The Hornet is basically an Alfa Romeo rebadged, overpriced. People weren't interested. I've even seen a $55,000 Jeep Compass. How did we get here? Because people were paying this. And it's the buyers that were entirely to blame for this. It really was. These dealers were greedy. The banks were greedy because the banks were also lending money to people that probably shouldn't have been lent to. But everybody was sort of in this together, and it was a really bad market and a bad storm and a set of conditions that led to people who were willing to overspend, banks that were willing to lend the money out, and manufacturers that were like, okay, yeah, let's do this. Let's play ball. You're also going to see this continuation to the EV segment, and they have no choice right now. The way the regulators and the governments are pushing, we're going to see this continuing development and cost increases on the high end of the market. But I think what we're going to see are trimming out of some of these vendors. You know, Stellantis is a huge one at risk. They have how many different brands within the Stellantis organization? Some of the big North American ones, of course, that we're all aware of: Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Chrysler, of course, Alfa Romeo, Maserati. Some of these brands are all kind of in that, and some of them aren't selling them. And some of them we know in 2025 are eliminating some of these models from the North American market. They're just not selling. So I think there's a huge risk for some of these brands literally closing their doors. Time will tell, but I think 2025 represents an entire new persona of what the car industry once was. We're going to see new brands, new names, shuffling, new ownership. It's going to be quite a bumpy ride. The fifth story, breaking news: Stellantis, Jeep, Dodge, Ram, Chrysler, you know, the whole gambit we've been talking about, they're literally on the verge of closing their doors, and the dealers are in serious stress.
And declining sales month over month, year over year. Since 2021, we've seen Stellantis with increasing prices. We've seen the opposite, decreasing sales of Jeep, Ram, Dodge products, and now the CEO is paying the price. The latest trends for Stellantis showing 17% decline in sales month over month, and this last quarter has literally been the telling and the tipping point for Stellantis CEO Carlos Tavares.
Products not selling, everything's overpriced, and overabundance of inventory means this brand has never seen this level of chaos. Can they survive into 2025 and beyond?
With 2025 pickup trucks sitting on the lot not selling, here we have a good example right here why that is. We look here, the Bighorn Sport Quad Cab 4x4, and it's going for a price tag of $69,000, and it's a very basic vehicle. Quite bare bones, and the value just doesn't seem to be there for a lot of customers. Jeep sales have been grossly down as well, and in the last 6 months to 8 months, we've seen massive discounts coming from Stellantis trying to pitch a lot of their products. The Wranglers are high priced and finally are pushed out of the reach of a lot of customers. And this all couldn't have happened at a worse time in the cost of living crisis. These brands just seem to be out of touch and out of reality with a lot of customers who are looking for a deal, when in fact these vehicles have gone up as much as 50 and 60% over the course of the last 5 years. Because clearly trying to knock down manufacturing costs is one of their biggest nemesis. That's why Stellantis was engaging what they call the doghouse, which is getting cost controls in effect. But how much are Durangos these days? Well, let's take a look. We have a Durango SRT 390T Premium all-wheel drive, and $105,000. That's right, 105 grand for this unit. Is it any wonder these things aren't selling? How about right here? Also, some of the worst selling products in the entire industry. We're seeing the Dodge Hornet, which is essentially an Alfa Romeo Tonale. And this vehicle on its own isn't that bad of a vehicle. It's actually kind of fun, sporty, and looks economical, until you have to put down the hard-earned dollars and pay for that vehicle, because they're not cheap either. And that's part of the problem. The cost of a lot of these vehicles is so far out of touch and out of reach, but also doesn't seem to align with the rest of the industry, which is finding their sweet spot. We're finding Stellantis, a lot of their products, whether it's Jeep, Ram, Dodge, are pricing their vehicles that just don't make sense when compared to a lot of their competition. And when I look at this lineup of full-size HD trucks here by Ram, these are the vehicles that have not actually been selling all that well. And when we look at the Wranglers over here, there's still a pretty good jag of these vehicles, and most of these are not even 25s. Most of these are still 23s and 24s sitting on the lot. They've all been here a long time. And when you look at the day's supply based on Cox Automotive data, you're finding that most of these vehicles owned by Stellantis have been on the lot at least double what the average industry is, where we're talking the average is about 80 days supply, and Toyota and Honda being down around 30 to 40 days supply. A lot of these vehicles are up in that 130, 140 day supply and beyond. Really, the only brand suffering any worse than Stellantis right now is Jaguar, and they pretty much shot themselves in the foot. Well, it feels like recently, with all of the challenges, the internal struggles, with a lot of the top players and the VPs within the organization, they finally asked him to step down. Now, Carlos in 21 was looking to be the player to turn this brand around, and of course wasn't planning to retire until 2026. But here we are in 2024, and now the word on the street is Carlos Tavares is finally gone. Now, allegedly, there's all kinds of dispute within the organization, and a lot of the top players were actually asking him to look aside, move aside. They were going to basically collectively, as a group, take care of the organization, until at which point they were going to replace the CEO with somebody entirely different. But cost aside, whether people can afford these or not, many people just can't come to grips with the cost increases that we've seen in the last 5 years. 40, 50, 60% on the price of a lot of these vehicles. I mean, we look at Jeep Wranglers, like here we have a Willys. It's a very basic low-level vehicle, but we've seen these go up at least by 40, 50% in the last few years. And that's insult to injury when you consider how cheap these vehicles are to begin with. And I personally owned one of these. I had back in the day a TJ 4-liter with a manual gearbox. It was a regular with a hard top, actually had the dual tops. And I bought that thing, it was 3 years old, slightly used, very low Ks on it. I remember years ago when I bought that vehicle for $12,000, slightly used. Brand new, I think it was around 20 grand. Now we're finding that base vehicle going up around $45,000, $50,000. And to get into something like this, we're talking vehicles that are 65, 70, $75,000, and even some of the more premium spec vehicles are up around $80,000, $85,000, and that's not even the 392 version there either. Another big problem that we've seen in the last year or so is the UAW. They negotiated with Stellantis, got the great deal that they all wanted, but unfortunately, I know Stellantis has to live up to that. And as a matter of fact, the plant that was supposed to produce one of their most cost-effective vehicles, the classic Ram, has all been more or less closed. Manufacturing workers, frontline workers, were losing jobs. We're seeing thousands of workers throughout the last couple of years lose their jobs, all for the sake of trimming costs, cutting the fat. And unfortunately for Stellantis, the writing's been on the wall for quite some time. With battles with the UAW, the union, there's been challenges, mudslinging back and forth with the brand Stellantis also really pushing hard to produce a lot of these electric vehicles and advance the electrified market. It feels, a lot of people allege that they've pretty much given up on their North American market. And sure, yes, you can get more North American vehicles here, but all they do is keep jacking up the prices and lacking innovation. Sure, all's well, they were promising to bring electric vehicles to the market, but how do you plug these Jeeps in when you're out in the bush? Plug-in hybrid vehicles or electric Jeeps? Yes, we're going to plug it into a tree. That's what a lot of people were saying. And it just doesn't make sense for your common garden variety North American buyer. Feels like they were left out to dry with a lot of these products that are lacking innovation and certainly just don't make sense and don't align with the buyers that they were targeted for. And then you talk about Ram, which was a vehicle intended for the masses. Garden variety working people like you and I. Garden variety lunchbox Joe, meant to go to work, take our truck to work, tow the trailer on the weekend to the camp, to the lake, as well as use it for work during the weekday. That was a versatile vehicle that the North American middle-class worker like us was designed to drive. But they've all but pretty much priced them out of the market. I can't afford the prices of a lot of these vehicles, and I know a lot of customers and a lot of buyers, potentially would-be buyers, would look at these vehicles, but they just can't afford it or can't justify the prices. Like a lot of this inventory that's piling up, there's a good reason that it's piling up. I mean, let's take a look. You've got Laramies, those are big bucks. You've got a regular 4x4, of course this one's pretty light duty. You've got chrome bumpers, but you'll look over here, you get the Bighorn, you get the painted bumper. It's a pretty nice vehicle. The base unit, chrome. Of course, this one here, you get the nice blacked wheels. Definitely like that. Tail lights look a little bit different as well. And you'll notice as you look down, people can't even afford these base trim. I mean, you get the base plastic handles here. Here you have the painted handles. It looks great. They're both diesels, of course, here, but even this working version right here is a costly unit, and a lot of people can't even afford this. But try some of these expensive trim levels. Right here's a top trim level. We have a Ram. This one is clearly a Cummins diesel driven. You've got the big mega cab design here, beautiful gloss rims. I love the looks of these things, and it's a 3500 HD. Of course, Cummins, big extended mirrors, LEDs everywhere. Yes, you get sunroof up there, and you get some other great details. You get the big display inside, heated, cooled, ventilated. Big, beautiful truck. Everything's painted, looks wonderful. How much? How much is this unit right here? Well, this one looks like a limited mega cab night edition. This is pretty much the top pops. And this one, oh, what are you? $124,000. That's right, 124 grand. Earlier this year, they also closed down their training grounds and sold that off, selling assets, the doghouse. They're looking at trimming costs internally, getting rid of any unnecessary expenditures, cutting workers, thousands and thousands of workers, closing plants. I mean, it's all starting to sound very familiar territory, isn't it? Nobody likes to use the B word, but bankruptcy feels to me, in my own personal opinion, just looming around the corner. We're approaching 7% on subprime and about 3 to 4% on prime buyers. That is scaring a lot of people. The politics have also done a switch, and it leaves everybody scratching their heads wondering what's in the future. Everybody's holding their money close to their chest, and nobody wants to spend. This with high interest rates, of course, with high vehicle prices, this could not be a worse time in Stellantis history to just try to keep afloat with high prices that are just out of touch with reality. And the latest is the US Energy Department is looking at lending a small loan, $7.5 billion, to a joint effort between Stellantis as well as Samsung to build two battery manufacturing facilities within Indiana in the United States. A clear indication that they're forging ahead, and the effort is to move to full transition to electrified vehicles, when in fact we know the North American market is slow on the uptake to buying those types of vehicles, and there's a strong resistance to buying vehicles that are hybrid, EVs, especially when we're talking about trucks, Jeeps, full-size SUVs. While there is a market, there's a small market and early adopters buying those types of vehicles, the majority of the middle class, Stellantis owners, for example, of Jeeps, Rams, Dodges, are just looking for a simple mode of transportation, including internal combustion engines. The real question is, does this small $7.5 billion loan represent more of a loan and pay back at higher interest rates? Or is it just another in a roundabout way of a bit of a bailout? I'm not sure. I'd like to hear more thoughts from you down in the comment section below, but that is the latest rumors that there's money coming from the government to Stellantis to help them with this transition.
It's sad. Stellantis, I never thought I'd see the day that Dodge and Jeeps and Rams are on the potential chopping block. And with all of this chaos and turmoil in the industry, is it any wonder people are holding on to what they've got? And if you do find a great deal, absolutely go for it. If in fact you want to avoid all the new cars entirely, some of the existing vehicles out there in the market can be some great choices. Right there, that's my mega video of the most reliable vehicles you can possibly get your hands on today. And right there is some of the junkiest, least reliable mega video that's going to share some of the vehicles you want to avoid like the plague. Hope to see each and every one of you all on the next one. We'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.